So I want you to picture this. It is, let's say 2:00 a.m.
Okay, 2:00 a.m., the classic hour of dread.
Exactly. The house is totally dark. The street outside is dead quiet. You are lying in bed, just staring up at the ceiling.
Right, and you're physically safe, but your mind is just racing.
Yeah, your chest feels like, it literally feels like there is a cinder block resting right on it.
Oh, I know that feeling so well. It's awful.
It really is. You aren't in any immediate danger, right?
Ugh.
But your brain is just screaming at you that the world is ending.
It's that absolute midnight panic.
Totally. And today, we're doing a deep dive into this profoundly fascinating piece of Japanese psychological writing that deals with exactly this.
And it offers a really counterintuitive solution, too.
It really does. It argues that the only way to cure this specific panic isn't to, practice positive thinking or try to manifest a better tomorrow.
Which is what we're basically told to do constantly in our culture.
Right, but this text argues that to survive the panic, you actually have to ruthlessly, meticulously plan for your absolute worst-case scenario.
It is a radically counterintuitive approach to mental health. I mean, we are so conditioned by modern wellness culture to just push negative thoughts away.
Oh, yeah. Good vibes only, right?
Exactly. We're told to focus on the light, practice gratitude, visualize success.
Just ignore the bad stuff.
Right, but the source text we're analyzing today suggests that this relentless pursuit of positivity is actually what's making us so fragile.
That is just, it's such a wild flip of the script.
It introduces a concept that translates roughly to the strength to assume the worst.
The strength to assume the worst. I mean, when I first read that in our source materials, my immediate reaction was just pure resistance.
Oh, sure. It sounds like a total recipe for depression.
Yeah. It sounds like you're just surrendering to the darkness.
Yeah.
Why would I want to dwell on the worst thing possible?
But the deeper we get into this text, the more you realize it's actually about, well, structural engineering for the human mind.
Right. It's about building a foundation.
Exactly. The author makes the case that understanding society's final resorts, the ultimate safety nets like public welfare, psychiatric intervention, or major medical surgery, it doesn't drag you down.
Which is what you'd expect, right? Thinking about hospitals and welfare.
Right. But actually, knowing exactly what the absolute bottom looks like and knowing what will catch you when you fall is the secret to walking through your daily life with genuine lightness.
That is so powerful. I love the analogy we were talking about earlier with the bridge.
Oh, yeah. If you think about the architecture of a suspension bridge, the engineers don't just calculate for a sunny day with a light breeze.
Right. They aren't just manifesting good weather.
Exactly. They calculate for a Category 5 hurricane. They calculate for a localized earthquake.
They assume the absolute worst.
Yes. And that structural pessimism is exactly what allows thousands of cars to drive over that bridge every single day without the drivers giving it a second thought.
Because the preparation is already done.
Right. The text is asking us to do the exact same thing for our own psychological architecture.
I love that.
Yeah.
But before we get to those ultimate safety nets, the text insists we have to first examine the anatomy of the anxiety itself, right?
We do. We need to dissect why this fear operates the way it does.
And specifically, why it waits until the sun goes down to absolutely destroy our peace of mind. I mean, why 2:00 a.m.?
Why not 2:00 p.m. when we're actually awake and dealing with our problems?
Exactly. It's always the middle of the night.
Well, that is where the text introduces a remarkably evocative concept. It describes the physical sensation of nighttime anxiety using the Japanese word zawatsuki.
Zawatsuki. I really want to dig into this word because it's so descriptive.
It is. It's an onomatopoeic word, and it's often used to describe the rustling of leaves in a forest just before a massive storm hits.
Ooh, that gives me chills. That quiet before the storm feeling.
Right. Or it can be used for the low, uneasy murmuring of a crowd when something is wrong, but no one knows quite what it is yet.
A murmuring in the chest. That is such a visceral way to describe it.
It really is. It's not a sharp, stabbing pain like a heart attack,
Right, it's not a medical emergency. It's this restless, vibrating discomfort.
Yes, it's the feeling that something is just fundamentally off axis in your life.
And the author warns that if you just let that Zawatsuki rustle away in the background, it operates like a slow drip poison.
It really does. It silently wears down your cognitive bandwidth and even your physical immune system.
But the most crucial observation the text makes about the specific breed of nighttime dread, the 2 a.m. stuff, is that it lacks a contour.
Yes. It has no defined outline, Formlessness.
Formlessness.
That is the defining characteristic and honestly the primary weapon of existential dread.
Because you can't fight something you can't see.
Exactly. When you are lying awake worrying about the future or money or your health, you aren't actually worrying about a specific event.
You're just worrying generally.
Right. You are worrying about an infinite spectrum of catastrophic possibilities.
Reading through this part of the text, it immediately brought me back to being a kid in my childhood bedroom.
Oh, the classic scary bedroom shadow.
Yes. You know when you leave a pile of laundry on a chair in the corner of your room?
Oh, absolutely.
During the day, with the lights on, the situation has a very clear contour. It is a pile of jeans and T-shirts.
Right. It's a simple, localized problem.
The solution is annoying, but it's obvious, right? Just fold the laundry.
A defined task with a defined boundary.
Exactly. But then you turn the lights out, and a tiny sliver of moonlight hits that exact same pile of laundry.
And suddenly it's terrifying.
Yes. Because without a clear light source to define its edges, that mundane pile of clothes casts this jagged, towering shadow against the wall.
It looks like a 6-foot-tall goblin getting ready to leap at you.
It totally does.
Yeah.
And the text seems to be arguing that because you can't see the edges of the shadow, your brain automatically fills in the gaps with the worst possible monster it can invent.
I think that analogy hits at the very core of the neurological mechanism the author is pointing to here.
Oh, really? Tell me more about the neurology of it.
Well, why does the lack of an outline make the dread so much heavier? From a cognitive perspective, the human brain is a highly efficient problem-solving engine.
Right. It wants to fix things.
Exactly. If you present the brain with a defined, bounded crisis, say, your tire blows out on the highway, your brain's executive function kicks in.
You go into action mode.
Right. You steer to the shoulder, you hit the hazard lights, you get the spare tire out, you call for a tow. It's stressful, but it's procedural.
Because the problem has borders. It starts with a flat tire and it ends with a tow truck.
Precisely. But when a fear is formless, when it's just the Zawatsuki whispering, you are going to fail financially, the brain's alarm system, the amygdala, fires up.
But it doesn't have a flat tire to fix.
Exactly. It has no concrete data to send to the prefrontal cortex to actually solve the problem. So the amygdala just keeps pumping out stress hormones.
It's just hitting the panic button
Yeah.
over and over.
Yes. And the brain spirals infinitely outward. It goes, I will lose my job, then I will drain my savings, then I will get evicted.
Then my friends will abandon me. Then I'll be on the street.
Right. And the text asserts that this infinite extrapolation, this holding on to a vague, shadowy peril, is exponentially more exhausting than dealing with an actual physical tragedy.
Wow. So it's the infinity of the potential problems that drains your battery, not the reality of the present moment.
Exactly.
We are essentially running a supercomputer at 100% processing capacity just to calculate a million different timelines of our own destruction.
And you're doing all this while just lying under a duvet.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that is why you wake up feeling completely exhausted before the day has even begun.
Right. Your body has been resting, sure, but your central nervous system just spent 8 hours fighting a phantom war.
So if formlessness is the enemy here, if this shadowy, undefined nature is the engine powering the anxiety, the obvious question is, how do we give the monster a shape?
Right. How do we turn the lights on?
Exactly. And the source text provides a first step that, honestly, it sounds almost too simple to be effective.
It really does. It tells us to turn the lights on and write the fear down on a piece of paper.
Just write it down.
It sounds deceptively simple, but the mechanics behind this act are actually profound.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, the instruction is not to journal about your feelings or to, write down positive affirmations.
Right, it's not a gratitude journal.
No, the instruction is to write out, in literal granular detail, the exact sequence of events that will occur if your absolute worst fear comes true.
Okay, I have to pause here
Mm-hmm.
because I really want to push back on this on behalf of anyone listening.
Sure, but...
I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone listening to this deep dive who is prone to severe anxiety.
Okay.
If my chest is already tight, if I'm already terrified of going bankrupt or, getting a horrible medical diagnosis,
Yeah.
forcing myself to sit at a desk and write down, I'm going to lose all my money and be destitute, that feels like psychological self-harm.
It sounds terrifying, yes.
It feels like I'm staring straight into the abyss and inviting it in. Doesn't doing this just amplify the panic? Like, why wouldn't I just freak out more?
That is the completely natural resistance the ego puts up. It feels incredibly dangerous to manifest your fears in ink.
It really does.
But the text anticipates this exact hesitation. And it counters it with a concept known as taishaho.
Kaishohu. What does that translate to?
It translates roughly to a countermeasure or a coping strategy. The argument is that keeping the fear in your head is what gives it infinite power.
Because it stays formless.
Exactly. The moment you force the fear through the bottleneck of language, and specifically through the physical act of writing it down, a massive cognitive shift occurs.
Wait, so you're saying the physical act of writing changes the nature of the fear itself?
It changes how your brain processes the fear. When it is swirling in your mind at 2 a.m., it is pure emotion. It is just a chemical soup of cortisol and adrenaline.
Just pure panic mode.
Right. But when you write it down, you are forcing your brain's language centers and motor functions to engage.
Oh, that makes sense. You have to think about spelling and grammar and holding the pen.
Yes, you are literally moving neural activity away from the panic center of the amygdala and into the logical sequencing centers of the prefrontal cortex.
Wow.
The text argues that the moment the fear is on paper, it ceases to be a mysterious monster and instantly shrinks into a, quote, simple problem.
A simple problem. Okay, let's test that theory.
Do it.
Let's do a real-time thought exercise right now to see if we can actually shrink a monster.
I like this. What scenario are we using?
Let's take the classic, terrifying modern anxiety. I am going to lose my job and go completely broke.
Yes. A ubiquitous fear for so many people.
Totally. So it's 2:08 a.m. That thought hits me. In the dark, the shadow monster tells me that losing my job means total annihilation. I'm going to end up in a gutter.
Right. The infinite spiral.
But following the text instructions, I get out of bed, I turn on the desk lamp, I take out a notebook, and I write it down. Scenario. My boss fires me tomorrow, and my bank account goes to zero.
Okay. You're looking at the abyss on college-ruled paper. What happens next?
Well,
Now you follow the sequence. The text asks, if the bank account hits zero, what is the literal logistical next step?
okay, if I have $0, the first thing is I can't pay my rent. So I would have to break my lease.
Okay, that's a logistical step. Keep going.
Then I would have to figure out where to sleep. I'd have to swallow my pride and call my parents, maybe ask to sleep on their couch or a buddy's couch.
Right. What about food? What about transportation?
I'd have to apply for food stamps. I would probably have to sell my car to pay off the immediate debt, which means I'd be taking the bus everywhere.
And
And then I would have to spend like 8 hours a day treating job applications like it was my full-time job.
Okay, stop right there. Notice what has happened to the conversation. Notice the tone of your voice just now.
It got boring.
Exactly. It got logistical. It became bureaucratic.
Yeah, it really did.
Moving back in with your parents at 35, selling your car, taking the bus, applying for food stamps, filling out endless online job applications. None of these things are fun.
No, they sound awful.
They are deeply unpleasant, highly stressful, and totally ego-bruising experiences. But they are actions.
Oh, I see.
They are the taishohu. They are countermeasures.
I really see the shift now. The formless monster of utter abstract ruin has just been reduced to a really depressing, highly annoying to-do list.
Yes, a to-do list for a very bad month. Or maybe a very bad year. But the crucial realization is that a to-do list is survivable.
Right. You can check items off a list.
The text states explicitly that the moment you can see a countermeasure, the anxiety loses its fangs.
Because it's not a mystery anymore.
Exactly. You realize that you will not evaporate into the ether if you lose your job. You will just be a person on a bus holding a stack of resumes.
It sucks, but you are still alive.
You maintain your agency.
That is such a brilliant reframe. By giving the worst-case scenario an outline, we realize that the bottom of the abyss is actually just solid ground.
Yes,
It
exactly.
might be cold, hard ground, but it's ground. You can stand on it.
And that leads directly into the text's next major point, which addresses our societal obsession with positivity that we talked about earlier.
Right. Good vibes only thing.
Yeah. The author draws a very sharp distinction between an unknown worst and an anticipated worst.
An unknown worst versus an anticipated worst. Expand on that for me.
So most people spend their lives frantically avoiding any thought of catastrophe, right? Hoping that by ignoring the possibility of ruin, they can somehow ward it off.
Like if I don't think about it, it won't happen.
Exactly. But the text argues this leaves you completely exposed.
How so?
Well, if a crisis actually hits, say, the economy crashes, and you do lose your job, and you have never once allowed yourself to imagine that reality, the sheer psychological shock of the event can completely shatter you.
You have no defenses.
Right. You are paralyzed by the unknown worst. You have no mental blueprint for how to operate in that new reality, so you just freeze.
And freezing is how people actually drown when the boat sinks.
Precisely. But if you have practiced this exercise, if you have mapped out the worst-case scenario on paper and identified the countermeasures, the crisis is now an anticipated worst.
You've already rehearsed it.
Right. The shock is vastly softened. Your brain recognizes the territory because you have already walked down that dark path in your mind.
This philosophy aligns so perfectly with why we conduct fire drills in elementary school.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Think about the logic of a fire drill. The school doesn't ring the alarm once a month because the principal is a doom-mongering pessimist who wants the building to burn down.
No, of course not.
And the teachers don't tell the kids to sit in a circle and manifest a fire-free reality.
They practice the disaster.
They practice the disaster. They teach 7-year-olds exactly what to do when the absolute worst thing happens.
Walk to the door, stay in line.
Exactly. You line up, you don't talk. You walk out the side door, you gather at the fence.
Yeah.
You do it so that if a fire actually breaks out, the kids don't run around screaming in panic.
The panic has been replaced by a learned procedure.
Yes. That is a phenomenal way to contextualize the author's message here.
What the text is advocating for is not pessimism. Pessimism is a passive state, right? It is sitting in the corner believing the fire will consume you no matter what you do.
Just giving up.
Right. What the text advocates for is hyper-preparation. It is mapping the fire exits of your own life.
Mapping the fire exits. I love that phrasing.
And the profound takeaway here is that being in a state where you are prepared to take action, having your countermeasures mapped out, is the absolute foundation of a mind that will not be swallowed by anxiety.
Okay, so we understand the mechanism now. We need to turn on the lights, write down the fears, and map the fire exits.
Yes.
Let's actually apply this framework to the specific worst-case scenarios the text highlights, because it gets very detailed.
It does. It breaks down the major pillars of life.
Let's start with the one that arguably keeps the most people awake at night, which is the fear of financial ruin.
Financial fear is arguably the heaviest burden because, in our modern society, money is inextricably linked to physical survival.
It totally is. It dictates your shelter, your food, your physical safety, and your access to healthcare.
Exactly. And the text points out that when you think about running out of money, we usually envision starving in the street.
Right, the absolute worst case.
But the author reminds us that modern society actually has an ultimate structural safety net built in for exactly this scenario.
And what is that?
The text explicitly points to public assistance, specifically the welfare system or seikatsu hogo in Japan.
Okay, this is where ego really gets in the way of mental peace.
Oh, massively.
I know so many people who would literally rather work themselves into an early grave than even entertain the thought of going on public assistance.
It's true. The author's framing of this is crucial, and it challenges a lot of deeply ingrained societal conditioning.
Because there's a huge stigma attached to it.
Exactly. In many cultures, taking public assistance carries a massive stigma. It is viewed as a personal failure, a lack of character, or, an inability to compete in the market.
People feel ashamed.
Right. But the text actively attempts to strip away that moral judgment. It frames public assistance not as a charity for the defeated, but as a structural final resort.
It's a built-in feature of society.
Yes. It is a fundamental right designed to catch citizens when the floor of their life collapses.
But the author introduces a really fascinating nuance here that I want to talk about.
Okay, what's that?
The text states that you don't even have to actually use the welfare system for it to save your life.
Yes, this is a key point.
Simply acknowledging that it exists, keeping its existence in the corner of your mind as a viable legal option, fundamentally changes how you operate today.
It changes your entire baseline.
But how does that work? How does a safety net you aren't even using change your present reality?
This is perhaps the most elegant psychological insight in the entire text. It introduces the concept of creating mental margin or blank space using the Japanese word yohaku.
Yohaku. I've actually heard this term used in art, like in traditional Japanese brush paintings.
Yes, exactly.
It's where the empty white space on the canvas is considered just as important as the ink itself.
Right. The negative space gives the subject room to breathe. It gives the painting balance and perspective.
Just how did that apply to the brain?
Well, the text applies this aesthetic concept directly to cognitive function. Imagine your mind is a canvas.
Okay, I'm picturing a blank canvas.
When you are operating under the belief that going broke means literal death, that terror acts like a thick black ink that covers the entire canvas.
Wow. It just swallows everything.
Exactly. There is no white space. There is no yohaku. You are operating in a state of absolute suffocating scarcity.
And scarcity mindset absolutely destroys your ability to make good decisions.
It really does.
If I believe my business failing means my family starves, I am operating purely on desperation.
You're in survival mode.
Right. I might take out a predatory loan with a catastrophic interest rate just to make payroll. I might lie to a client to secure a deal. I might compromise every moral boundary I have just because my brain thinks it's a matter of life or death.
And behavioral economists have actually proven this. Operating under severe scarcity effectively drops your functional IQ.
Really. It makes you measurably less intelligent in the moment.
Yes, you develop tunnel vision. You can only focus on the immediate threat, completely ignoring the long-term consequences of your actions.
Because you're just trying not to drown.
Exactly. But the text argues, when you deeply internalize the existence of the ultimate safety net, when you accept that even if you lose the house, lose the business, lose every dime, there is a systemic floor designed to keep you fed and sheltered, you suddenly wipe away half of that black ink.
You get the canvas back.
You gain psychological breathing room, you create yohaku.
So by accepting the worst-case scenario, you actually give yourself the cognitive bandwidth to avoid it.
Exactly. The paradox is that the safety net empowers you to avoid needing the safety net.
That is so wild.
When you aren't consumed by the terror of a bottomless freefall, your central nervous system calms down.
You can actually think clearly.
Right. You can look at your shrinking bank account objectively. You have the calm, creative energy required to rationally review your expenses, pivot your business model, or just ask for help.
You can walk the tightrope of life much more gracefully when you know the net is there beneath you.
That's a great way to put it.
You stop looking down at the void, and you start looking straight ahead at the path.
It breaks the cycle of panic entirely. The knowledge of the floor is what allows you to stand up straight.
That is profound. Okay, so that is the financial safety net mapped out. But our bank accounts aren't the only resources that can hit rock bottom.
Far from it.
What happens when the mind itself begins to fracture? Because the text dives incredibly deep into the reality of mental and emotional collapse.
It does. And it treats mental burnout with the exact same structural logistical logic as financial ruin.
Which is refreshing, honestly.
It really is. And it starts by dismantling a very dangerous myth about who actually suffers from mental breakdown.
Right. There's this huge cultural assumption that mental breakdowns happen to people who are inherently weak or fragile.
Yes, the idea that they just couldn't hack it.
But the text asserts the exact opposite, right? It says that mental collapse often strikes the most earnest, hyper-responsible, hardworking people.
It hits the people who carry everyone else's burdens.
Exactly. The ones who run miles past their own physical and emotional limits without even realizing it.
The overachievers. The people who believe their value is entirely dependent on their output and their reliability.
And the text points out that the body always sends warning signals before the engine completely seizes up.
It lists them very clearly.
Yeah. Severe insomnia, a sudden and unexplained loss of appetite, and anhedonia.
Which is that terrifying, hollow inability to feel joy or pleasure in things you used to love.
Right. You stop caring about your hobbies. You stop caring about your friends. Everything just feels like gray ash.
Those are the dashboard warning lights flashing red. But how does society train us to react to those lights?
Society, especially in highly competitive corporate cultures, tells us to just put a piece of tape over the warning lights and keep driving.
Just push through the pain.
Yeah. We are fed this toxic diet of hustle culture. The text explicitly calls out this mentality. It warns that you cannot fight clinical burnout or a true mental illness with just guts or endurance.
And it uses two specific Japanese words here, kanjo and geimin.
Break those down for us.
So kanjo roughly translates to sheer willpower or spirit.
Like pushing through no matter what.
Right. And geimin is the virtue of enduring the unendurable with patience and dignity.
Which sound like admirable traits on the surface.
They are historically celebrated traits, absolutely. But the author points out their fatal flaw when applied to mental health. You cannot use willpower to fix a depleted neurotransmitter system any more than you can use willpower to heal a fractured femur.
Right, you can't just think your way out of a broken leg. So if gammon just gritting your teeth and bearing it is a failed strategy, what is the safety net here? How do we map the fire exit for a collapsing mind?
The author introduces modern psychiatry and professional mental health care as the ultimate safety net for the mind.
The clinical route.
Right. And just like with the welfare system, the text attacks the societal stigma head on. It argues that visiting a psychiatrist or checking into a clinic is not an admission of moral defeat.
It's not waving a white flag to the universe.
Exactly. It's an objective medical evaluation.
And the text emphasizes that psychiatry is a structured system of countermeasures, right?
Yes. Whether the treatment involves medication like an SSRI to provide immediate chemical scaffolding for a brain that is misfiring, or cognitive behavioral therapy to manually untangle the twisted thought patterns.
The point is that a proven scientific path to recovery actually exists.
Yes.
I really want to focus on the imagery the text uses in this section because I found it incredibly moving.
It is very poetic.
The author writes that simply knowing this psychiatric safety net exists, just knowing that there is a hospital and there are doctors whose entire profession is dedicated to putting shattered minds back together, actually extends your limit line just a little bit further into the future.
Extending the limit line. It's a beautiful way to describe the alleviation of meta-anxiety.
Meta-anxiety, explain that. Anxiety about the anxiety.
Exactly. When you are on the verge of a breakdown, you aren't just suffering from the stress of your job or your relationship.
You're carrying an extra load.
Right. You are carrying the massive, terrifying meta-burden of feeling like you alone are responsible for holding your sanity together.
Oh, that's heavy.
You believe that if you slip, if you finally crack, you will fall into a state of permanent madness or despair and never come back. That pressure alone is enough to shatter a person.
It's like walking on a frozen lake, constantly terrified that every step is going to break the ice and you'll just drown in the freezing water.
But if you internalize the truth that the safety net is there, if you know deep in your bones that if the ice breaks, there are divers waiting to pull you out, there are warm blankets, there are protocols to revive you, the paralyzing pressure releases.
Because you know you won't die if you fall in.
Exactly. You realize you do not have to be invincible.
You are allowed to break?
You are allowed to break.
Yeah.
And the supreme paradox of human psychology is that the moment you grant yourself the permission to break, the moment you realize you don't have to hold the universe together through sheer willpower, you suddenly find the strength to hold on for one more day.
Wow. Knowing the hospital is there gives you the endurance to survive the night.
It is the exact same mechanism as the financial safety net. Knowing the net is there keeps you on the tightrope.
Okay, we've secured the wallet by dismantling the stigma of public assistance. We've secured the mind by viewing psychiatry as structural medical scaffolding.
But there's a third pillar.
Right. The source text addresses a third pillar of existence, which is the physical vessel we actually live in.
The body. And when we talk about formless monsters, unexplained physical symptoms are perhaps the most primal trigger for nighttime anxiety.
Health anxiety is terrifying because you are trapped inside the thing that might be failing.
You can't escape it.
Right. When you discover a strange lump, or you have a persistent deep ache in your abdomen, or a weird numbness in your arm, the imagination completely takes over.
Because you lack a medical degree, the symptom is completely formless to you. You don't know the boundaries of the problem.
And so the amygdala extrapolates, just like we talked about earlier.
Exactly. A tension headache becomes a glioblastoma. A muscle twitch becomes ALS.
And how do most people react to that terrifying mental spiral? They employ the worst possible strategy: avoidance.
They try to ignore it.
The text explicitly points out that many people try to put a lid on it. They pretend the symptom doesn't exist, hoping that if they don't acknowledge it, it will just magically resolve itself.
Which the author identifies as a critical error. Avoidance is the enemy of preparation.
It really is.
Ignoring a physical anomaly is arguably the most dangerous manifestation of the unknown worst. Because by avoiding the doctor, you are actively narrowing your future choices.
Reading this, I kept thinking about car maintenance, weirdly enough.
Oh, how so?
Well, imagine you are driving a car down a deserted highway, and you start hearing a loud, metallic knocking sound coming from under the hood.
Okay.
What the text is describing is the equivalent of a driver getting so panicked by the knocking sound that they just turn the car radio up to maximum volume so they don't have to hear it anymore.
Oh, that is exactly what we do. It is a deeply human, deeply irrational response. We think that by drowning out the noise, we have somehow solved the problem.
Right. But blasting the radio doesn't fix the pistons in the engine. The mechanical failure is still happening.
It's just getting worse silently.
Yes. By ignoring it, you aren't preventing a breakdown. You are just guaranteeing that when the breakdown finally happens, the engine will be totally destroyed and you'll be stranded in the middle of nowhere with zero options.
The text contrasts this dangerous avoidance with a deep reliance on the evolution of modern medical science.
The ultimate physical safety net.
Exactly. The author frames the healthcare system, and specifically medical surgery and diagnostics, as that final net.
Let's expand on that, because medical settings themselves are massive sources of anxiety for people. Going to the hospital is scary. Getting an MRI is scary.
It is scary, but the text asks us to logically compare two different states of fear.
Okay, what are they?
First, you have the heavy, suffocating psychological load of imagining the worst in absolute ignorance.
That's the 2 a.m. spiral.
Yes, that is you sitting alone in the dark, feeling a pain, Googling your symptoms, and convincing yourself you have 3 weeks to live. That is the formless monster.
It is pure terror with no action plan.
Contrast that with imagining the worst while knowing there's a prepared path of medical treatment.
Okay, so bringing in the professionals.
Right. The text reminds us that diseases that were historical death sentences just a few decades ago now have highly established routine clinical pathways.
Modern surgery is remarkably precise. Pharmacology is highly targeted.
Exactly. So even if the absolute worst case scenario is true, even if it is cancer, going to the doctor fundamentally changes the nature of the beast.
Going to the doctor takes the infinite shadowy monster of illness and shrinks it down into a defined medical chart.
It becomes a specific diagnosis. It gets a name.
The moment it gets a name, it gets a countermeasure. It gets a treatment plan.
We're back to the countermeasures.
We are.
Yes. The text's core argument here is about preserving your options. If you engage the medical safety net early, your countermeasures might be as simple as physical therapy or taking a daily pill.
Right.
But if you use the blasting the radio strategy and wait until the engine explodes, your only remaining countermeasure might be massive invasive surgery, if you have any options left at all.
The physical safety net exists, but it requires you to turn on the lights and actually walk into the clinic.
You have to engage with it.
So if we step back and look at the architecture we've just built based on this text, it's incredibly robust.
It really is.
We have systematically marched through the big 3 worst-case scenarios of human life. We have mapped out the fire exits for our finances via welfare.
Yes.
We have mapped out the exits for our mental stability via psychiatry. And we have mapped the exits for our physical bodies via modern medicine. We have found the floor for everything.
We have established that the abyss actually has a bottom. The safety nets are in place.
So the ultimate question is, what does the author say we should do now?
Right. What's the next step?
Yeah, after we have done all this heavy, morbid, terrifying cognitive labor, what is the reward?
The text provides a very clear, very specific directive for the aftermath of this exercise. Once the worst-case scenarios are mapped and the countermeasures are confirmed, the author instructs the reader to put period on it.
Put a period on it.
Yes. The Japanese phrase used is ichikugiri.
Ichikugiri.
Yeah.
Bringing it to a definitive close.
It literally means to draw a boundary line. The text acknowledges that you cannot reduce human anxiety to absolute zero.
Right. We're hardwired for it.
Exactly. Our brains are hardwired for survival. We will always scan for threats. But, the author argues, once you have mapped out the fire exits, you have done your due diligence.
You've done the work.
You have properly and bravely faced the reality of your life. Therefore, you no longer need to obsess over the shadow on the wall. You are instructed to literally put the anxiety outside of your head.
I love this concept so much. It is the ultimate payoff for doing the hard work. It's like the text is handing you a permission slip.
A permission slip is exactly the right sentiment.
Because you had the courage to look the monster in the eye, and because you figured out exactly what you would do if it attacked, you have earned the right to go live your life.
You did the fire drill. Now you can sit at your desk and learn math without constantly staring at the smoke detector.
That's it, exactly. The text argues that fighting against things that are completely out of your control or constantly bracing for a catastrophic impact that might never even arrive is just a tragic, exhaustive waste of your limited lifespan.
You are burning your engine out before the race even starts.
So what does the text instruct us to do with our time once we've put a period on the anxiety?
It gives a beautifully simple directive. Use your time and your energy for things that bring you joy.
Joy.
Yes. The author explicitly mentions the seemingly small things. Listen to your favorite music. Move your body. Laugh with a friend. Eat a good meal.
It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? After talking about bankruptcy and mental collapse, being told to just listen to music feels almost frivolous.
It is absolutely not frivolous, and the text is very deliberate here. Joy, in this framework, is not mere hedonism or distraction.
What is it then?
Engaging in things you love is how you build What the author implies is your quiet recovery power.
Quiet recovery power, that's a great phrase.
Think of it biologically. Anxiety floods your system with cortisol. It keeps your sympathetic nervous system locked in fight or flight mode.
Which is exhausting over time.
Right. By consciously putting a period on the worry, by practicing ichikugiri and actively choosing to laugh or listen to music, you are forcefully engaging your parasympathetic nervous system.
You are telling your body, we are safe right now, we can rest.
Yes, you are actively rebuilding your baseline resilience.
Wow. So building a resilient life isn't just about surviving trauma. It's about having the capacity to actually experience joy.
Embracing joy is a strategic, necessary choice. It is a much richer, far more intelligent use of your cognitive bandwidth than maintaining a state of constant, low-level panic about a future that hasn't happened yet.
The journey this source text has taken us on is just remarkable.
It really is a complete inversion of how the modern world tells us to process fear.
It forces us to walk through the darkness to find the light, rather than just pretending the darkness isn't there. We started with that crushing, suffocating 2.00 EM anxiety. We learned that the dread thrives on formlessness, on being an undefined shadow whispering infinite what-ifs.
The Zawatsuki, the restless stirring that drains our life force.
We learned that we can defeat that formlessness by turning on the lamp, grabbing a pen, and forcing the monster into the bottleneck of language.
By writing our fears down in excruciating detail, we turn infinite terrors into simple logistical problems.
We establish our countermeasures, our teishahu.
And by acknowledging society's ultimate safety nets, the realities of public welfare, the diagnostic clarity and structural support of psychiatry, and the advanced capabilities of modern hospitals, we neutralize the existential dread.
We realize that the bottom of the world is not a bottomless pit. There is a net waiting to catch us.
We have mapped the fire exits.
We have. So to you, the listener, the person who spends an hour with us on these deep dives,
we're talking directly to you.
the next time you find yourself awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling fan, feeling that familiar cinder block resting on your chest, remember the mechanics we talked about today.
Do not pull the covers over your head.
Do not try to think positive. Turn the lights on, grab a pen, and stare exactly at what is terrifying you.
Give the fear a contour. Map out the absolute worst-case scenario, find your countermeasures, and recognize the safety nets that exist beneath you.
And once you've drawn that map, practice ichikugiri. Put a period on it. Close the notebook, turn the light off, and grant yourself the permission to sleep.
That's the real goal.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, something that really crystallized for me as we were unpacking the deeper philosophy of this text.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author assures us that beyond the worst-case scenario, there is always some kind of path prepared.
It is a deeply grounding realization.
But it makes me wonder, what if the very things we spend our entire adult lives running away from?
Like failure.
Yeah. What if admitting our vulnerability? What if accepting that we might one day need societal safety nets like welfare? What if being willing to surrender our ego and ask for medical or psychiatric help? What if those aren't signs of weakness at all?
That's a powerful question.
What if fully accepting our own fragility is actually the secret key to living with radical freedom and joy right now? Have we been exhausting ourselves running away from the exact things that could actually set us free?
Something to think about the next time you're lying awake in the dark.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you on the next deep dive.